The desert dust clung to my throat like a noose as I stumbled into Dusty Creek Ranch, half dead from 3 days riding through the Badlands. Before we go any further, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Are you in the heart of Texas, out in California, or somewhere across the ocean, imagining what the Wild West was really like? The sun was bleeding red across the horizon, and I knew one thing. I needed shelter before the coyotes started howling. The ranch house loomed ahead, a weathered skeleton of wood and shadow, the kind of place where secrets go to die and nobody asks questions. Inside, the air was thick with tobacco smoke and whiskey fumes. A grizzled rancher stood behind a makeshift bar, his eyes like chips of flint embedded in leather. His hands, those hands, were stained with something darker than dirt, and when he looked at me, I felt like livestock being appraised for slaughter. "Need a room," I said, my voice barely a rasp. He didn't speak, just stared. Then slowly, that mouth twisted into something that might have been a smile on a friendlier face. "Only got one bed left," he said, each word deliberate as a bullet being loaded. "In the back room." I should have left right then. Should have walked back into that desert and taken my chances with the rattlesnakes, but exhaustion makes fools of us all. He led me down a narrow hallway that seemed to stretch longer with each step, the floorboards groaning like they were trying to warn me. When he pushed open the door, my blood went cold. She stood by the window, silhouetted against the dying light, tall, dressed entirely in black, with a gun belt that held 2 pearl-handled revolvers. Her hair was dark as a raven's wing, pulled back tight. And when she turned, I saw eyes that had seen too much death to fear it anymore. "The Black Widow," I whispered. And I wasn't talking about any spider. Everyone in the territories knew her name. They said she'd buried 3 husbands, one in Texas, one in Arizona, one in New Mexico. They said she was the fastest gun west of the Mississippi. They said she collected bounties the way other women collected recipes. And she never, ever missed. The rancher's voice cut through my panic. "Only got one bed," as I said. The Black Widow turned fully now, and that's when I saw it, that smile. Not friendly, not warm, something calculating, like a gambler who's just realized the deck is stacked in their favor. "That's perfect," she said, her voice smooth as expensive whiskey. "I'm not afraid." The door slammed behind me. The lock clicked from the outside. I spun around, grabbed the handle, and pulled with everything I had. Nothing. We were trapped. The Black Widow and I in a room with one bed, locked in until dawn by a rancher whose smile promised nothing good. "I wouldn't bother," she said behind me, and I heard the soft click of a revolver being checked. "That door's solid oak. You'd need dynamite." I turned slowly, hands visible, heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape my chest. She hadn't drawn on me, not yet. She just stood there, studying me with those deadly calm eyes. "So," she said, moving toward the bed with deliberate, measured steps, each bootfall echoing in the small room. "You going to tell me why there's a price on your head, or do I have to guess?" My mouth went dry. How did she know? The Black Widow's smile widened, and she sat down on the edge of that single bed, her hand never leaving her gun. "Because, friend," she said softly, "I don't share rooms with strangers, only with prey." The night stretched before us like a dead man's rope, and I was at the end of it. The Black Widow sat on that bed like a queen on a throne, methodically cleaning her revolvers with a cloth that had seen this ritual 1,000 times before. Each motion was precise, almost meditative, the way a preacher might handle his Bible, except her scripture was written in gunpowder and lead. "You gonna stand there all night, or you gonna talk?" she asked without looking up. I pressed my back against the door, mind racing. Through the thin walls I heard voices, low, conspiratorial. The creak of floorboards, the unmistakable sound of rifles being loaded. Whatever was happening at Dusty Creek Ranch, it was bigger than just me and my bad luck. "I didn't kill anyone," I said, which was mostly true. "They never do." She held up one revolver to the moonlight streaming through the window, checking the barrel. "Let me guess. Wrong place, wrong time. Somebody blamed you for something you didn't do. Maybe you were just trying to feed your family, and things went sideways." Her tone wasn't mocking. It was worse. It was knowing. Like she'd heard every variation of this story and watched how they all ended. "Something like that," I muttered. She finally looked at me then. Really looked. And I saw something flicker behind those hard eyes. "I had a husband once. First one. Good man. He was blamed for stealing cattle that he was trying to return to their rightful owner. They hanged him before he could prove his innocence." She went back to her guns. That's when I learned that justice and the law aren't always the same thing. Outside, a wagon rolled up, heavy from the sound of it. Voices rose, then fell to whispers. I moved toward the window, but the Black Widow's voice stopped me cold. "Don't! We need to know what's happening out there." "We know exactly what's happening." She stood, both revolvers now gleaming and ready. "This ranch is a way station for cattle rustlers. The rancher takes a cut, provides cover, and asks no questions. Those men outside, they're bringing in tonight's haul, stolen cattle from the Henderson spread, if I'm guessing right." "You knew." The words came out strangled. "You knew this was a trap, and you came anyway?" That smile again, the one that made my skin crawl. "I'm hunting a man named Blackjack Deacon. He's the one who killed my second husband and framed my third for murder before shooting him down in the street. I've been tracking him for 2 years, and my sources say he runs this operation." A gunshot cracked outside, then another. Shouting erupted. Men's voices raised in anger and alarm. The Black Widow moved to the wall, pressed her ear against it. Her expression darkened. "They're arguing about territory. Someone's trying to muscle in on Deacon's operation." She turned to me. "This is about to get very bloody, very fast. So, what do we do?" She walked to a dusty dresser in the corner, yanked open the bottom drawer, and pulled out my wanted poster. My face stared back at me, sketched in harsh lines. "Wanted, dead or alive, 500 reward." My knees nearly buckled. "How did you?" "The rancher left it here, for me to find." She crumpled it in her fist. "You weren't trapped with me by accident. You were bait. He knew I'd be coming for Deacon, figured he'd earn an extra $500 and maybe slow me down in the process." The shooting outside intensified. Glass shattered somewhere in the ranch house. Men were screaming now, the kind of screaming that comes right before dying. The Black Widow kicked the dresser aside, revealing a loose floorboard. Beneath it, 2 rifles and a box of ammunition. She tossed me one of the rifles. I caught it on instinct. "So, here's your choice," she said, loading her weapons with the efficiency of someone who'd done this in their sleep. "You can try that locked door again and probably die in this room, or..." The door exploded inward in a hail of splinters and gunfire. Time slowed to the speed of a bullet spinning through the air. The Black Widow moved like lightning in human form, rolling across the bed as gunfire chewed through the mattress where she'd been standing a heartbeat before. Feathers exploded into the air like snow in hell. I dropped, pressed myself against the wall, brought up that rifle she'd given me without thinking. Pure survival instinct. 3 men filled the doorway. No, not men. Killers. The kind whose eyes had gone dead long before their bodies would. The rancher stood behind them, that knowing smile still plastered across his face like a wound that wouldn't heal. "Evening, widow," he drawled. "Black Jack sends his regards." She fired twice. 2 shots that sounded like one. The first man dropped with a hole through his heart. The second took it in the throat and went down gurgling. The third dove back into the hallway, and suddenly we had a moment to breathe. But only a moment. "He's here," the Black Widow said, her voice electric with something between rage and vindication. "Deacon's here in this house." She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw her not as a legend, but as a woman who'd lost everything and had nothing left to lose. "That offer I mentioned, help me end this and I'll tear up your wanted poster. You'll be free." "And if I say no?" Another volley of shots punched her through the walls. Wood splinters rained down like deadly rain. Somewhere deeper in the ranch house, a man was barking orders, a voice with authority, with cruelty baked into every syllable. Black Jack Deacon. "Then we both die in this room," she said simply. "Your choice. Make it fast." I thought about running, about diving through that window and taking my chances in the desert darkness. But I looked at her, this woman who'd been wronged by the same corrupt system that had branded me an outlaw, and I made the only choice that felt like it meant something. "Where's your extra ammunition?" Her smile was fierce, almost feral. "That's what I hoped you'd say." We moved as one, kicking over the bed for cover, grabbing every bullet we could reach. The hallway erupted with gunfire, and we answered in kind, a symphony of violence that shook the ranch house to its foundations. "Deacon!" the Black Widow shouted over the chaos. "I know you're out there. I've come for you just like I promised." A pause. Then that voice, smooth, confident, utterly without conscience. "Vivian, I wondered when you'd catch up. Took you long enough." So that was her name, Vivian. "Come out and face me," she called back. "Or are you still hiding behind other men's guns?" Laughter, cold, mocking. "You really think you can take my whole crew? There are 8 of us, widow. 8 guns against your 2. 8? She glanced at me, and I saw the calculation in her eyes. I liked those odds. Then she did something crazy. She stood up, fully exposed, both revolvers raised. "Let's settle this the old way, Deacon. You and me. High noon rules right here, right now. You win, you keep your operation, and my partner's bounty. I win, your men let us walk." The silence that followed was suffocating. "And why would I agree to that?" Deacon finally asked. "Because you're a vain son of a bitch who thinks he's the fastest gun in the West. Because you've been bragging about it for years. Because deep down, you're terrified that a woman might actually be better than you." Another pause. Longer this time. Then, "Clear a path, boys." The shooting stopped. Footsteps in the hallway. The shuffle of men backing away. And then Black Jack Deacon stepped into the doorway. Tall, handsome, in a serpent kind of way, with a gun belt that probably cost more than most ranches. "After you, widow," he said, gesturing toward the main room. This was it. The moment everything would end, one way or another. The main room of the ranch house felt like a cathedral built for sinners, all shadows and judgment, with moonlight streaming through bullet holes in the walls like unholy spotlights. Blackjack Deacon stood at one end, relaxed, confident. His men lined the perimeter, guns holstered but hands hovering close. They'd agreed to the terms, but I didn't trust a single one of them. Honor among thieves is just a pretty lie people tell themselves. Vivian, the Black Widow, stood at the opposite end, 20 paces away. Her revolvers hung at her sides, fingers loose but ready. I'd seen her move. I knew what she could do. But Deacon had that same predator's calm, that same certainty of someone who'd never lost. One of them wouldn't walk out of here. "Before we do this," Deacon said, his voice carrying across the room like smoke, "I want you to know, I didn't enjoy killing your husbands, Vivian. It was just business, nothing personal." Her jaw tightened. "Everything's personal when you take someone's life. See, that's always been your problem." He smiled, and it was the smile of a man who thought he'd already won. "You feel too much. Makes you slow, makes you hesitate. We'll see." The tension was so thick I could barely breathe. The rancher stood against the far wall, his earlier confidence cracked around the edges. He'd thought he was orchestrating this whole thing, but he was just another pawn. We all were, except for these two. "On three?" Deacon asked. Vivian nodded once. "One." My heart was a war drum in my chest. "Two." I saw Deacon's shoulder dip, just a fraction, just a twitch. He was going to draw early. Cheat. Of course he would. "Third." He went for his gun, but Vivian had seen it too. She moved a half-second before three ever left his lips, and her revolver cleared leather like it had been waiting its whole existence for this moment. 2 shots, simultaneous, thunder in an enclosed space. Deacon's bullet took her in the left shoulder, spinning her halfway around. But her bullet, found his heart. He stood there for a moment, looking down at the bloom of red spreading across his chest, surprise finally cracking that smug expression. "You really are faster," he whispered. Then he fell, and he didn't get back up. The room erupted into chaos, Deacon's men reaching for their weapons, shouting, some backing toward the door. But Vivian, bleeding and swaying, raised her other revolver and fired once into the ceiling. "Your boss is dead," she shouted. "The deal was you let us walk if I won. Are you men of your word, or are you just like him, liars and cowards?" The men looked at each other, at Deacon's body, at the woman who'd just proven she was the fastest gun they'd ever seen. One by one, they holstered their weapons. The rancher tried to slip toward the back door, but I stepped into his path, rifle raised. "Not so fast. The sheriff's gonna want to hear about this cattle operation." Vivian stumbled, and I caught her before she hit the floor. Blood soaked through her black shirt, but she was smiling, actually smiling. "We did it," she said, her voice weak but triumphant. "You did it. I just didn't get shot. You stayed. That's what mattered." She gripped my arm. "The wanted poster in my saddlebag. There's a match tin. Burn it." "What about your shoulder?" "I've had worse." She laughed, then winced. "Actually, no, I haven't. This really hurts." As dawn broke over Dusty Creek, "Ranch! The law arrived. Real law. Not the corrupt kind. They took the rancher and Deacon's men into custody. They listened to our story. And when they checked their records, they found something interesting about my case. Something about a witness who'd recanted. Evidence that had been suppressed. Maybe I was going to be okay after all, but there was still one question that needed answering. 6 months later, I was working an honest job at the Silver Creek Ranch, 2 territories over. New name, clean slate, and for the first time in years, I could sleep without one eye open. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, plain envelope, no return address. Inside, my old wanted poster, torn in half, stamped with official ink that read, "Charges dismissed." And beneath it, a note in elegant handwriting. "Fear is just a story we tell ourselves. You proved yours wrong. The judge listened. Your name is cleared. Stay out of trouble. V." I stood there in the morning sun, holding that letter like it was made of gold, and I realized something. I'd spent years running from a lie, letting fear dictate every decision, every direction. It took being locked in a room with the most dangerous woman in the West to learn that sometimes the only way past fear is straight through it. Vivian, the Black Widow, had taught me that courage isn't about being unafraid. It's about being terrified and doing what's right anyway. I heard later that she'd retired from bounty hunting. Some said she opened a ranch of her own, taking in stray animals and people who needed a second chance. Others claimed she was training other women to protect themselves, to stand up against the men who thought they could take whatever they wanted. I like to think both stories are true. As for that night at Dusty Creek Ranch, the tale spread like wildfire across the territories. People added their own flourishes. Some said there were 20 men, not 8. Some said the Black Widow took 3 bullets and still won the draw. Some said I was her secret partner all along, part of an elaborate plan. Let them tell their versions. I know what really happened. I learned that the people we fear the most are sometimes the ones who save us. Those labels, whether it's outlaw or Black Widow, don't define who we really are. And that's when you're locked in a room with only one bed and nowhere to run. Sometimes the best choice is to stand your ground and fight alongside someone instead of fighting alone. The moral of this story? Fear loses its power the moment you stop running from it. Whether it's a Black Widow spider in your room, a reputation you can't shake, or a past mistake that haunts you, facing it head-on with courage and the right allies can transform your entire life. Now here's my challenge to you. What fear have you been running from? What's the one-bed situation in your life that you've been avoiding? Drop a comment below and share your story, because sometimes just naming our fears takes away their power. And if you enjoyed this wild tale from the West, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss another story. I've got more tales of courage, redemption, and unexpected heroes coming your way. From haunted gold mines to train robberies gone wrong, from gunfighters seeking redemption to ordinary people who found extraordinary bravery when they needed it most. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to be afraid, as long as you don't let fear make your decisions for you. The Wild West wasn't just about gunfights and outlaws. It was about survival, second chances, and discovering that sometimes the person you think is your enemy might just be the ally you've been looking for all along. Until next time, remember, there's always a way forward, even when the door is locked and you only have one bed. Now go face your fears. I believe in you. Subscribe, comment, and I'll see you in the next story.